Imagine a world where bustling cities, advanced knowledge, and vibrant cultures simply disappear. One day they're thriving, building pyramids and charting stars, and the next, silence. What if the very ground beneath their feet turned against them, or a shadow fell from the sky, erasing everything? For centuries, historians, archaeologists, and curious minds like us have stared at the ruins of once mighty civilizations, scratching our heads and asking the same chilling question: what happened? From the enigmatic Maya to the mysterious Indus Valley people, countless advanced societies seem to vanish into thin air, leaving behind only whispers and monumental riddles. It's a puzzle that keeps us up at night, a stark reminder of how fragile even the grandest human achievements can be. Today, we're diving deep into the 5 most compelling, and sometimes terrifying, theories that attempt to explain these sudden disappearances. Get ready, because the answers might just make you look at our own world a little differently. Number 5. The thirsty Earth, climate change, and environmental collapse. Picture this. You live in a thriving city, surrounded by lush fields that feed your people. Life is good. Then slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, the rains stop coming. The rivers shrink. The sun bakes the earth, turning fertile land into cracked dust. This isn't a scene from a dystopian movie. It's a chilling reality that many ancient civilizations likely face. One of the most powerful theories for sudden societal collapse points directly to the environment, specifically drastic climate change. We're talking about prolonged droughts, sudden floods, or even shifts in global weather patterns that made life unsustainable. Take the classic Maya civilization, for instance. For centuries, they flourished in the Mesoamerican lowlands, building magnificent cities like Tikal and Palenque, developing complex writing systems, and mastering astronomy. They were brilliant, innovative, and seemingly unstoppable. But around the 9th century AD, their grand cities began to empty. Construction ceased, monuments were left unfinished, and the jungle slowly reclaimed what was once vibrant urban centers. What happened? The prevailing theory, backed by extensive paleoclimate data from lake sediments and stalagmites, points to a series of severe, prolonged droughts. These weren't just a few dry seasons. We're talking decades, even centuries, of significantly reduced rainfall. The Maya relied heavily on rainwater for agriculture and drinking, storing it in vast reservoirs. When the rains failed, their intricate agricultural system, which supported millions, crumbled. Crops withered, leading to widespread famine. The ruling elite, who were seen as intermediaries with the gods responsible for rain, lost their legitimacy. Social unrest, warfare over dwindling resources, and mass migrations became inevitable. It wasn't a single sudden event, but a slow, agonizing strangulation by thirst that ultimately led to the collapse of their centralized power and the abandonment of their great cities. The people didn't vanish entirely, but their advanced, interconnected civilization did. Another prime example is the Indus Valley civilization, one of the 3 early cradles of civilization, alongside ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia. Flourishing around 2500 to 1900 BCE, their cities like Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa were marvels of urban planning, with sophisticated drainage systems, multi-story houses, and impressive public baths. They had a unique, undeciphered script and a vast trade network. Yet by 1900 BCE, these grand cities were largely abandoned, and the civilization faded into obscurity for millennia. While the exact reasons are still debated, a significant factor appears to be a shift in the monsoon patterns that fed the Ghaggar-Hakra River system, a major lifeline for their settlements. Research suggests a weakening of the monsoon rains, leading to the drying up of rivers and a decline in agricultural productivity. This environmental stress, combined with potential changes in trade routes and internal pressures, likely made their complex urban centers unsustainable. The people dispersed, perhaps migrating eastward towards the Ganges basin, but the highly organized, urban civilization they had built simply couldn't adapt to the changing climate and dissolved. It's a stark reminder that even the most advanced societies are utterly dependent on the delicate balance of their environment. Number 4. The shadow of the sword, invasion and warfare. Imagine waking up one morning to the terrifying sound of war horns, the screams of your neighbors, and the sight of an unknown enemy pouring into your streets. This wasn't just a nightmare for many ancient peoples. It was a brutal reality that led to the swift and violent end of entire civilizations. While environmental factors often play a long game, external invasion and relentless warfare can deliver a sudden, devastating blow, wiping out cultures in a generation or less. Perhaps the most dramatic example of this theory in action is the mysterious Bronze Age collapse, a period around 1200 BCE that saw the sudden and widespread destruction of nearly every major civilization in the Eastern Mediterranean and Near East. We're talking about the Mycenaean Greeks, the Hittite Empire, the New Kingdom of Egypt, the Kassites of Babylonia, and the Ugaritic Kingdom, all powerful interconnected empires that suddenly crumbled. Cities were burned, trade routes vanished, and literacy disappeared in many regions. It was a dark age that lasted for centuries. While internal revolts, droughts, and economic disruptions certainly played a role, a major culprit often cited is the enigmatic Sea Peoples. These were groups of maritime raiders whose origins are still debated, but who are documented in Egyptian records as attacking and devastating coastal regions across the Levant. Imagine waves of desperate, well-armed migrants or raiders, driven by their own unknown crises, sweeping through established empires. They weren't just looking for plunder. They were destroying the very fabric of society. The Hittite capital of Hattusa was sacked and abandoned. Mycenaean palaces were destroyed. Egypt itself barely survived, repelling the Sea Peoples at great cost, but its power was severely diminished. The interconnected globalized world of the Late Bronze Age, with its complex trade networks and diplomatic ties, simply couldn't withstand such a coordinated and widespread assault. The suddenness of the collapse, the simultaneous destruction across vast regions, strongly suggests a powerful external force, or a series of forces that overwhelm these civilizations. Another classic example, though perhaps less sudden than the Bronze Age collapse, is the fall of the Western Roman Empire. While it was a long, drawn-out process, the final blows were delivered by successive waves of barbarian invasions. For centuries, Rome had been the undisputed superpower of the Western world, a beacon of law, engineering, and military might. But by the 4th and 5th centuries CE, weakened by internal strife, economic woes, and overextension, it became increasingly vulnerable. The Goths, Vandals, Huns, and other Germanic tribes, often pushed by their own migrations and pressures from the east, began to breach Rome's borders. The sack of Rome by the Visigoths in 410 CE sent shockwaves across the known world. The Eternal City had fallen. Then came the Vandals in 455 CE, and finally, in 476 CE, the last Western Roman emperor, Romulus Augustulus, was deposed by the Germanic chieftain Odoacer. While Roman culture and influence persisted in many forms, the political and military structure of the Western Roman Empire, which had defined Europe for centuries, was suddenly gone. Its institutions dissolved, its legions disbanded, and its vast territories fragmented into smaller kingdoms. The suddenness here lies in the final decisive blows that ended centuries of imperial rule, ushering in a new era. These invasions weren't just border skirmishes. They were existential threats that ultimately dismantled one of history's greatest empires. Number 3, the cracks within. Internal strife and societal collapse. Sometimes the greatest enemy isn't an invading army or a changing climate, but the rot that festers from within. Even the most magnificent civilizations can crumble under the weight of their own internal problems. Political corruption, economic inequality, social unrest, and a loss of faith in their leaders or systems. When a society becomes too fractured, too unjust, or too unable to adapt to its own growing pains, it can simply tear itself apart. Consider the tragic story of Rapa Nui, better known as Easter Island. This tiny, isolated speck of land in the Pacific Ocean is famous for its colossal stone statues, the moai, carved by its ancient inhabitants. For centuries, the Rapa Nui people thrived, developing a complex society capable of incredible feats of engineering and artistry. But by the 18th century, when European explorers first arrived, the island was a shadow of its former self. The population had plummeted, the forests were gone, and many moai lay toppled. What happened? While resource depletion, which we'll get to, played a huge role, internal strife was a major accelerant. As the island's limited resources dwindled, competition for land and food intensified. Clans began to fight each other, leading to widespread warfare. The very statues that symbolized their power and unity became targets, toppled in acts of defiance and destruction. Oral traditions speak of a period of intense conflict where the long ears, the ruling elite, were overthrown by the short ears, the commoners. This internal breakdown, fueled by ecological disaster, led to a complete societal collapse, where the once proud culture devolved into chaos and cannibalism, unable to sustain itself or its grand traditions. The society didn't just vanish, it imploded from within. The classic Maya, again, offer another compelling case study where internal strife contributed significantly to their decline alongside climate change. While drought was a major external stressor, the Maya elite's response to it, or lack thereof, exacerbated the crisis. The kings and priests were seen as divine rulers, responsible for mediating with the gods to ensure prosperity, including rain. When the rains failed for decades, their authority was undermined. The common people, already burdened by heavy labor from monumental construction and tribute, likely grew disillusioned and rebellious. Evidence suggests an increase in internal warfare between city-states, not just for resources, but perhaps also because of political fragmentation and a breakdown of alliances. The elaborate rituals and ceremonies, once unifying, may have lost their meaning. Some theories propose peasant revolts against the ruling class, or a gradual decentralization of power as people abandon the cities for more sustainable rural living. The complex, hierarchical structure of Maya society, which had been its strength, became its weakness when faced with existential threats. The inability of the elite to adapt, to provide solutions, or to maintain social cohesion in the face of environmental and economic hardship led to a loss of faith and a fracturing of their once unified civilization. It wasn't a single revolution, but a slow, agonizing unraveling from the inside out. Number 2, the empty pantry, resource depletion, and unsustainable practices. Imagine a community that lives off the land, taking what it needs, but never quite realizing that the well isn't infinite. They cut down trees for homes and fuel, farm the same fields year after year, and hunt animals without thinking about tomorrow. For a while, it works. But then, the trees are gone, the soil is barren, and the animals disappear. This isn't just a cautionary tale. It's a pattern that has led to the sudden decline of many ancient cultures who simply outgrew their environment's ability to sustain them. The ancestral Pueblones, often referred to as the Anasazi, who inhabited the Four Corners region of the American Southwest, provide a stark example. For centuries, they built incredible cliff dwellings and complex irrigation systems, creating a sophisticated agricultural society in a challenging desert environment. Their peak was around 1100 to 1300 CE, with massive settlements like Mesa Verde and Chaco Canyon. But by the late 13th century, these impressive sites were largely abandoned, and the people dispersed. While a major drought certainly played a role, archaeological evidence strongly suggests that unsustainable practices exacerbated the crisis. The Pueblones relied heavily on pinyon and juniper trees for construction, fuel, and even food. As their population grew, they deforested vast areas, leading to soil erosion and a loss of biodiversity. The intensive farming practices, especially in marginal lands, further degraded the environment. When the Great Drought hit from 1276 to 1299 CE, the land was already stressed and couldn't recover. The combination of a natural disaster and human-induced environmental degradation made their traditional way of life impossible. They didn't vanish, but their highly organized, sedentary culture centered around large settlements did. forcing them to migrate and adopt new, more dispersed lifestyles. It was a sudden, forced abandonment of their ancestral lands and a complete transformation of their society. Another compelling, though perhaps less sudden in its finality, example is the Norse settlement in Greenland. Around 985 CE, Eric the Red led a group of Vikings to Greenland, establishing two main settlements that thrived for over 400 years. They built churches, farmed, and hunted, maintaining a European lifestyle in a harsh Arctic environment. But by the early 5th-10th century, the settlements were completely abandoned, and the Norse disappeared from Greenland. While the onset of the Little Ice Age certainly made conditions tougher, the Norse's rigid adherence to their European ways, rather than adapting to the Inuit practices of the region, played a crucial role. They continued to rely on cattle farming, which was ill-suited to the cooling climate, and refused to adopt seal hunting techniques that could have provided a more stable food source. They also heavily deforested the limited trees for fuel and construction, further degrading their fragile environment. Their reliance on trade with Europe for essential goods also became a vulnerability as voyages became less frequent. When the climate worsened and trade dwindled, their unsustainable practices and inability to adapt sealed their fate. It wasn't a single catastrophic event, but a slow, grinding decline brought on by a combination of environmental change and a failure to live within the means of their isolated, fragile ecosystem. The last written record from the Greenland Norse is a wedding in 1408. After that, silence. Number 1, the unseen hand, catastrophic natural events. Sometimes, a civilization doesn't just fade away or crumble from within. It's simply erased in a single terrifying moment. Imagine the ground shaking violently, the sky raining ash, or a massive wave swallowing everything in its path. These are the sudden, brutal ends delivered by catastrophic natural events, leaving little time for escape or adaptation. While less common for entire advanced cultures to vanish without a trace due to one event, localized disasters can certainly wipe out major centers and trigger a domino effect of collapse. The most famous example, though it pertains to a city rather than an entire civilization, is the Roman city of Pompeii. In 79 CE, Mount Vesuvius erupted with unimaginable force, burying Pompeii and its neighboring city Herculaneum under layers of volcanic ash and pumice. The destruction was instantaneous and absolute. Thousands of people were killed, frozen in time by the ash. While the Roman Empire itself continued to thrive, the sudden obliteration of these vibrant cities serves as a chilling reminder of nature's raw power and how quickly human life and infrastructure can be wiped off the map. If a similar, larger-scale event had struck a more isolated or less resilient civilization, the outcome could have been total disappearance. Consider the Minoan civilization, which flourished on the island of Crete in the Aegean Sea from roughly 2700 to 1450 BCE. They were a sophisticated, maritime power known for their elaborate palaces like Knossos, their unique art, and their extensive trade networks. Around 1600 BCE, the nearby volcanic island of Thera, modern-day Santorini, experienced one of the largest volcanic eruptions in recorded history. This wasn't just a little puff of smoke. It was an eruption estimated to be 4 to 5 times more powerful than Krakatoa in 1883. Eruption generated massive tsunamis that would have devastated coastal settlements on Crete, only 70 miles away. It also blanketed the island in ash, disrupting agriculture and trade. While the Minoan civilization didn't vanish overnight immediately after the eruption, the Thera event delivered a crippling blow. It severely weakened their naval power, destroyed their coastal infrastructure, and disrupted their agricultural base. This made them vulnerable to subsequent invasions from the Mycenaean Greeks, who eventually conquered Crete and absorbed what remained of Minoan culture. The eruption wasn't the sole cause of their ultimate demise, but it was a sudden, catastrophic event that initiated a rapid decline, leaving them open to external forces that finished the job. Even more speculative, but still within the realm of possibility, are theories involving asteroid impacts or sudden, massive seismic shifts. While there's no definitive archaeological evidence of an advanced ancient civilization being wiped out by a direct asteroid hit, such an event would certainly fit the suddenly vanish criteria. A large impact could trigger global climate change, massive tsunamis, and widespread destruction, making survival impossible for any complex society in its path. Similarly, a series of massive earthquakes or sudden land subsidence could swallow cities whole, leaving little trace. The very ground beneath our feet, usually a symbol of stability, can become an agent of instant destruction, reminding us that even the most advanced human endeavors are built on a fragile planet. So, what's the real answer? Why did so many advanced ancient cultures suddenly vanish? The truth, as often happens with history's grandest mysteries, is rarely simple. It's almost never just one thing. Instead, it's usually a terrifying cocktail of factors. A prolonged drought weakening a society already strained by internal political squabbles, making it ripe for invasion. Or perhaps a catastrophic natural disaster that destroys infrastructure, leading to resource scarcity, and then, inevitably, internal conflict. Their stories are a chilling echo from the past, a powerful reminder that even the most brilliant and seemingly invincible societies are incredibly fragile, and that our own future might depend on how well we learn the lessons from their sudden, silent disappearances. If you want to dive deeper into another ancient mystery, check out our other videos, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more journeys into the past.